Ford's beast that intimidated Dodge, the 1964 Fairlane Thunderbolt. Did you know that Ford once created a muscle car so powerful that it made Dodge rethink its entire strategy? We're going to be talking about the 1964 Fairlane Thunderbolt, a factory-built drag racer that changed the game and left Dodge scrambling to catch up. Stick around to find out how Ford's bold move with the Thunderbolt set the stage for the muscle car wars that followed. Before we get into the Thunderbolt and why it became such a dominant force on the strip, let's take a step back to set the stage. In the early 1960s, the automotive landscape was quite different from what we know today. The pony car era hadn't even begun. Icons like the Mustang, Camaro, and Challenger were still on the drawing board. This was a time when the big three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, were battling it out with full-sized cars in the NHRA Superstock series. For Ford, the weapon of choice was the full-sized Ford Galaxy. Back in 1961, the Galaxy was powered by a 390 cubic inch V8, a respectable engine for the time. But soon Ford found themselves outgunned. Competitors from GM and Chrysler started rolling out bigger, more powerful engines, over 400 cubic inches, that began leaving Ford in the dust. Recognizing the need to keep up, Ford responded in 1962 by upping the ante with a 406 cubic inch version of the 390. This new engine pushed the Galaxy's power comfortably over the 400 horsepower mark. And suddenly, Ford was back in the game, winning races more consistently. But the real turning point came in 1963 when Ford introduced the 427 cubic inch version of their engine, replacing the 406. This is where the story of the legendary 1964 Thunderbolt really begins. The 1963 Galaxy Lightweight, equipped with the 427, was a fast car, no doubt about it. However, there was one big problem: weight. Even with all the weight reduction efforts, the Galaxy still tipped the scales at just over 3,400 pounds. For 1964, the NHRA set the minimum weight for the class at 3,200 pounds. And that extra 200 pounds could mean the difference between winning and losing. Despite the Galaxy's powerful engine, it was simply too heavy to dominate the competition. Ford needed a solution, a car that could harness the power of the 427 without being weighed down. And that's where the Thunderbolt comes into the picture. A car specifically designed to solve this problem and push the boundaries of what was possible on the drag strip. Enter the Ford Fairlane, a car that would prove to be Ford's secret weapon in the battle for NHRA supremacy. Unlike the heavy Galaxy, the Fairlane was a mid-sized offering, and it came with a serious weight advantage. Fully unloaded and dry, the Fairlane tipped the scales at around 3,000 pounds. This meant that with fuel, a driver, and a bigger engine under the hood, the Fairlane would be much closer to that 3,200-pound weight limit set by the NHRA, giving it a significant edge over the heavier Galaxies. But here's the catch. To race this leaner Fairlane, Ford needed to build 100 road-going versions of the same spec to meet NHRA requirements. And the biggest challenge in doing so? Fitting the monstrous 427 cubic inch engine under the Fairlane's hood. You see, at the time, the largest engine available in the Fairlane was a 289 cubic inch small block, a far cry from the beastly 427 that Ford had in mind. To make this ambitious plan work, Ford's engineers had to get creative. They relocated the battery to the trunk, notched the shock towers, and custom-built a set of tubular headers that had to be routed in some seriously unconventional ways just to squeeze the 427 into the engine bay. The space was so tight that clearance was practically non-existent, but Ford wasn't about to let that stop them. Now let's talk about the 427 itself. A powerhouse of an engine. On paper, it was rated at around 425 horsepower, but in reality, it was a whole different animal. Most estimates put the actual output well over 500 horsepower, with some even claiming it pushed closer to 600. This wasn't just an engine. It was a statement, a declaration that Ford was ready to dominate the strip. With the 427 finally shoehorned into the Fairlane, Ford had built something truly special. The Fairlane Thunderbolt was born, a car that combined raw power with a lighter, more agile frame, making it a force to be reckoned with on the drag strip. The Thunderbolt wasn't just fast, it was a game-changer, pushing the limits of what a production car could do and setting new standards in the muscle car world. The Thunderbolt was no ordinary Fairlane. Ford took their already potent 427 engine and gave it the full performance treatment, transforming it into a monster that would make any gearhead's heart race. The Thunderbolt's 427 engine ran an aggressive 12.7 to 1 compression ratio, packing a serious punch. It featured a set of high-flowing heads and a wicked camshaft designed for one purpose: pure speed. To top it all off, Ford added two massive four-barrel carburetors paired with a functional ram air intake system that channeled air directly from the headlight deletes to the carburetors. This setup wasn't just for show. The Thunderbolt was built to dominate the drag strip. When paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, the Thunderbolt became an unstoppable force. Ford also offered a 4-speed automatic option, but true drag racers often opted for the manual, especially when it could be paired with a set of 4.57 rear gears that gave the car an extra edge off the line. But the Thunderbolt wasn't just about a powerful drivetrain. Ford took things even further by stripping down the Fairlane to shed every unnecessary pound. Even though the Fairlane was lighter than the Galaxy, Ford knew that in drag racing, every tenth of a second counts. So they tossed out the stock Fairlane seats and replaced them with simple flat seats borrowed from a Ford Econoline van. Inside the car, anything that didn't absolutely need to be there was removed. Out went the radio, sound-deadening material, sun visors, armrests, and even the passenger side windshield wiper. The Thunderbolt was all about function over form, and every ounce saved was a potential gain on the strip. The exterior didn't escape Ford's weight reduction efforts either. The Thunderbolt was equipped with lightweight fiberglass fenders, doors, and the iconic teardrop hood. Initially, Ford even used fiberglass bumpers, but when the NHRA ruled them illegal, they switched to aluminum versions instead. The 1964 Thunderbolts were built on Fairlanes originally equipped with 289 engines because those models came standard with Ford's indestructible 9-inch rear end, capable of handling the immense power and abuse these cars were destined to endure. Ford managed to hastily build all 100 units of the Thunderbolt to meet NHRA's homologation requirements, with 50 cars equipped with the 4-speed manual and the other 50 with the automatic. The first 11 Thunderbolts were painted in a striking burgundy, while the rest rolled out in Wimbledon white, the same color used on the Shelby GT350. But did all this effort pay off? Absolutely. The Thunderbolt wasn't just fast, it was a rocket on wheels. These cars were capable of running 11-second quarter-mile times straight from the factory, with some of the best recorded times dipping into the very low 11-second range. The fastest time documented in period was an astonishing 11.08 seconds at 128 miles per hour, a blistering speed for 1964. In its debut year, the Thunderbolt, driven by the legendary Gas Ronda, secured the NHRA Top Stock crown, cementing its place in drag racing history. Despite its dominance, the Thunderbolt's reign was short-lived. By 1965, the racing scene had shifted, with manufacturers moving toward smaller, more compact cars, what would eventually become the iconic pony cars. The Thunderbolt's time at the top was brief, but it left an indelible mark. Today, a factory-original Thunderbolt is a prized collector's item, often fetching multi-six-figure prices at auctions. While it's a hefty sum, what you're buying is a rare piece of motorsport history, one that's unlikely to be seen on the road again. And that's the legacy of the 1964 Ford Thunderbolt, a car that not only changed the game, but also paved the way for the muscle car wars that would follow. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Thunderbolt, be sure to like the video, share it with fellow enthusiasts, and subscribe to the Rare Cars YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our next documentary-style exploration of the world's most fascinating cars. Until next time, keep the passion for speed alive.